In the old world, we had the Industrial Revolution providing us with more muscle power, and now we have the Internet Revolution, the Artificial Intelligence Revolution, providing us with more brain power. So this is important because all of a sudden it's the power of the brain. So intelligence is now becoming, I wouldn't say a commodity, but I can beef up my thinking using artificial intelligence. Sam Altman, the CEO of OpenAI, of course, says the coming change of AI will be the most impressive of all human capabilities, the ability to think, create, understand, and reason. This is a bit far-fetched because, quite simply, I'm not so sure I want my AI to have the ability to reason and to think like a human. That's a tall promise, and we'll talk much more about that later. But when we talk about digital labor, this is, of course, a forward-looking statement. We're going to teach computers and machines and AI and humanoid robots to be like humans, to think and to reason and to create. So what is digital labor? This is, of course, a really, really big term these days when companies are discussing the way forward with artificial intelligence. It is really always facilitated by AI and refers to technologies that perform tasks previously done only by humans. So now the labor is not people labor, and the HR department isn't human resources, it's digital resources, it's AI resources, just like the internet is now switching from search to artificial intelligence to answers. This is a huge shift. I'm not sure for the positive, but we will discuss that later. Machines can essentially do what humans used to do, and these agents can mimic human decision making and cognitive abilities. And of course, the big promise is that businesses can grow quicker and to extend the capacity, complete tasks faster. Salesforce is one of the leaders in this AI agenting business when we talk about digital labor being the new normal. So in the future, some bulletin boards in the Bay Area already were suggesting don't hire humans, hire AI. Big topic. So Digit News says digital labor is the autonomous cognitive capability of AI systems. Autonomous. That's the key word. So there's a bunch of stuff I'm going to go through here, and then it gets a little bit less like a seminar at the university. But I think this is important to go through this, so bear with me. So digital labor performs autonomous cognitive work, and it accelerates economic output. So we're able to go quicker to get the job done quicker. This is, of course, utterly tempting for many companies like banks, insurance companies, venture capital funds, mutual funds, and so on, to use AI to work quicker, to deliver more economic output. And of course, it's intangible. It's digital information. It's not physical. It's just basically about code, text, content, videos, all of those things that require digital creation or that allow digital creation. And the output of the digital labor, obviously not physical output yet, there are insights, decisions, forecasts, information, language, designs, forecasts and foresights. Yeah, that's a tough one for me because I'm supposed to be the one with the foresight and the forecasts. And it's a very, very interesting scenario that's happening. I try it out every day. Sometimes I'm shocked, sometimes I'm delighted, sometimes I'm crying almost. It has unprecedented scalability. So once developed, it doesn't matter if one person is using it or 100,000 or 100 million. It matters for the computing power, of course. But otherwise, it's the same software that can also learn from other instances of the same software, basically spread around the network. It can be deployed to many users, and it learns from all use, like all deep learning and machine learning, to get better at the task at minimal additional cost, at no degradation. It's non-rivalrous. It's not like food. When I eat it, you can't have it. It's basically available to everyone, regardless of the amount of use. This is a very important distinction because non-rivalrous goods have a different economy. Number two of this chart, and you can read it yourself here on the web, it can learn autonomously and self-improve. So self-improvement, recursive improvement through use and data and feedback makes the engine learn faster, and digital labor can learn a lot faster than a person because a person only learns for himself or herself, rather than once you learn it as one person, it doesn't automatically spread to 1,000 people. It is still a learning process for all involved people. It can lead to compounding productivity gains. Of course, this is the tempting thing. Primarily, the idea of substituting humans with machines is all about compounding gains and having larger returns. And I would forecast some companies looking at up to 50% of cuts at least for hiring new people, and then maybe new people would also be hired, which we'll discuss a little bit later. Point number 7, it might also be subject to digital labor to sudden depreciation and obsolescence, meaning that it may all of a sudden no longer work because the data is outdated, or we have fragmented data, or we have algorithmic changes that all of a sudden make the system collapse. This is a typical kind of hallucination issues with large language models. But pretty much for all digital labor, it could change very quickly when the data is bad or when it's no longer coming. It could end up being useless. But the relationship with human labor, this is very important, is elastic. That means sometimes it's just a great augmentation, sometimes it's complete substitution. Sometimes it automates, sometimes it doesn't do any of that, it just does the process, and it's nuanced. Very hard to predict what will happen to individual jobs because of digital labor. How much substitution will we have? Of course, this is the key question. If digital labor results in 50, 60% of substitution across all people working, that would be a tough one for a society. This leads to a non-linear substitution dynamic, which means that substitution is happening, sometimes augmentation. We don't know which one at which time, because it's not always the same, depending, of course, on the industry, on the vertical, on the people, on the culture. Culture eats technology for breakfast. And the compensation for the AI, well, the compensation goes to the owner. Right? This is why it's so deeply tempting, I think, for companies to use digital agents, digital labor instead of people, or at least on top of people, like Amazon is saying, using digital labor hasn't gotten in the way of hiring people. That is a big discussion, which we'll have later in the combined group conversation. So here's a little chart. I'm going to share the slides with you later. This is one I had done in ChatGPT, and it's given me some nice highlights of all the things that we already talked about. So the autonomous cognitive capability of AI systems in a chart you can download later and take another good look. But here's the thing. It could be heaven or it could be hell. It could be heaven if indeed all these sort of economic paradigms can be accelerated. If humans do less grunt work, less commodity work, it could free us up for new work. It could create new working positions, new possibilities. It could completely squash white collar jobs as well as blue collar, of course, as it has been. It could lead to a lot of changes that are very hard to predict because it's such a multitude of angles and possibilities, and we'll have some numbers on that a little bit later. Unprecedented scalability, this is the hard thing. This is exponential, so that means that in 1 year I can save 10%. The next year is not just 20, it's 50. And it will gradually lead to an explosion of digital agents and digital labor. That depends very much on the cultural context. For example, in developing countries, this will be large investments that currently don't work, or not enough of the population is online to partake in this digital labor effect. So many things are happening here, but it's exponential and it's much, much quicker than anything we could have ever imagined just before ChatGPT. So the key question here for us, of course, is will it replace or augment human work? Will it be an automation, a substitution, where basically means I don't have to do the work anymore, or I can't do the work anymore? Imagine a paralegal using artificial intelligence. And augmentation really is this concept that we've just cooked up last week with our design team here, the Futures Agency. So where I'm essentially being augmented, so I have magic hands or magic feet or magic thinking in a way, where I can be different than before and more powerful, a bit superhuman, but still very much myself. That would be augmentation. I think this is going to be 95% of all the interesting use cases. And currently the hype of AI, of course, is about automation. I think that's actually a very tall order. And it looks like this when we think about automation. It looks like the AI and me, the person, the human, can create a digital human. So this will be digital labor instead of me. Once I've taught the AI how to do this, for example, mining, to go into a mine and get things out, and that can be automated just like many factory jobs, but also research, diligence, financial information, checking up on facts, scheduling, personal assistance, and all that stuff. Yes, yeah, maybe that person can be fully digital. In which case, I know I'm no longer needed because I'm not a match for that speed and the tirelessness. And of course, machines won't be in unions and asking for a raise. So this automation could lead to this kind of, useless humans syndrome, to where a lot of people would feel like, if the machine can do all of this, I'm just there as an augmentation rather than the other way around. So feeling useless or becoming useless, but also, of course, capable of upskilling. But the real question is, what will companies do when those machines become capable as humans? Will they distribute the benefit among the staff and the team, or will human resources become essentially intelligence resources? Big question. So this guy talks about Salesforce, Mark Benioff, announcing that they've already made lots and lots of customer support inquiries using AI, and 86% are now being resolved by an AI agent. They're probably pretty simple inquiries, I would suppose. And Klarna has done something very similar. This is the Nordic e-commerce bank site that allows people to have customer service chats with bots, and has boasted about that doing 80% of their workforce. So this is a very, very big topic, and I think this is scaling very quickly. And the key question is, what happens when we have more agentic AI? And I explain that in a second. But digital labor is largely based on the idea of AIs being like agents, autonomous, learning, recursive potentially, and creating a kind of a super intelligent network. So an artificial intelligent agent is a system or program that's autonomously performing tasks on behalf of a user or another system. So we have a system that can go out and do things without us having to hold its hand, like we do now with most of our ChatGPT interactions and search and so on.
The next one are called agents. And agents is a generally overused term. And most people think that agents will essentially act as memory sources. So an agent can be understood as it's watching something, and when it sees it, it takes an action. It does that by knowing what to do based on what it's seen. The specs for how agents work are completely undefined in the industry. The dominant companies want to have their own agents, and they don't want the agents to interact because they want control for obvious reasons. Many people think that there will be an agent store.
An agent store. This is, of course, Eric Schmidt, the former CEO of Google, now the CEO of his own company, the Schmidt Futures. And Eric is a pretty smart guy. He talks about this a lot, and I think we need to pay attention. Say, if this happens, if we have a network of agents and an agent store, then this is our HR department, right? They are basically becoming the intelligence resource department. Microsoft is very big on this agent thing, and their main thing is the research report you should download from Microsoft about the future of work just a few weeks ago. Their bottom line is business demands outpace human capacity. That's why we need agents, so we can act quicker and respond quicker. And you're looking at all the what they call the frontier firms. That's a firm that is capable of applying all those ideas like a frontier. The first one's pioneering to go there. Some really interesting terms. The agent boss. Microsoft says we'll all be bosses of agents, not people. And digital labor, of course, a frontier firm, the human agent ratio, all that stuff you can read in the report. So this is just kind of a heads up to take a look at this. And this is Mustafa Sulaiman from Microsoft, and he talks about agentic AI and how it can be used to create, for example, podcasts on demand.
Hey, Copilot, for tomorrow's commute, can you put together a 15-minute podcast with some dinosaur facts that I can remember so I can show up like one of those cool uncles at the birthday party?
You got it, Mustafa. I'll get that ready for you right away.
Nice. Okay, let's have a listen.
Morning. Welcome to your personal podcast about dinosaurs. Here are some cool facts for your nephew's birthday party.
What about the name Velociraptor?
You get the point. This is obviously a great demo. Whether that works in real life remains to be seen. A lot of these demos are progressively looking into the future as if it was working perfectly now. Many of these things are working, but I have to try it myself. So we have all the leaders of AI agenting from IBM, of course, all the way to Microsoft and Salesforce and OpenAI and Amazon, and this field is exploding. The question is, what does it do to human labor? And is it possible to do these things with digital agents that act autonomously? Satya talks about what we can do with AI and which way we're headed with agentic capabilities.
Let me show you what we are excited about in the Gemini app. We call it agent mode. Say you want to find an apartment for you and 2 roommates in Austin. You've each got a budget of $1,200 a month. You want a washer dryer or at least a laundromat nearby. Normally, you'd have to spend a lot of time scrolling through endless listings. Using agent mode, the Gemini app goes to work behind the scenes. It finds listings from sites like Zillow that match your criteria and uses Project Mariner when needed to adjust very specific filters. If there's an apartment you want to check out, Gemini uses MCP to access the listings and even schedule a tour on your behalf. And it'll keep browsing for new listings.
It's, of course, a key point, the MCP, the connection to real life, to websites and to real life action. Powerful stuff. Imagine if this kind of agent network is capable of doing this beyond things like travel, but for example, for supply chain or so. Then we end up in a place where we have to ask, okay, how does it know? And will it do the right thing? Is it mission critical? And can we rely on it? Is it trustworthy? Because again, it's an answering engine. It does things for us. We don't just browse it. So anyway, the key question is, as I keep saying, will human work still be needed? And what happens to us when we have this? How far is too far? You can see in this animation that we put together here is initially we have a group of people tapping into the AI cloud. Then we have one person having access to an even much larger cloud, and then another person in another place with their own cloud that we're tapping into, coming together and allowing us to become distributed intelligence. And then in the end, all these clouds are around us and we can tap on all these possibilities. And then one day, maybe the cloud is just a cloud and it does it by itself. And the question is, how far is too far? How far can we still control? How far will maintain our human control, keep the human in the loop? Is that even possible? Do we need it? Are we all going to be just having a good time, not really working anymore or working much, much, much less for the same money? And who makes sure that all happens fairly? Bill Gates has quite a shocking message on this one.
So the era we've come to is the vision that computing was expensive and it basically became free. The era that we're just starting is that intelligence is rare, a great doctor, a great teacher. And with AI, over the next decade, that will become free, commonplace. Great medical advice, great tutoring.
Will we still need humans?
Not for most things.
Shocking message. Computing was expensive and then became cheap, and now intelligence was expensive and now becomes cheap or free. And we may not need humans. That's what Bill Gates is saying. Of course, he didn't quite mean it like this, but taken out of context really here. He has a much larger vision on this, but this is a shocking message. We should consider what he says. And then, of course, we have our good friend Elon, who says many things. The longer the day goes on, the more tweets will come from him. And no comment on that, just pay attention to what he's saying here.
I think we are seeing the most disruptive force in history here, where we have for the first time, we will have for the first time something that is smarter than the smartest human. And that, it's hard to say exactly what that moment is, but there will come a point where no job is needed.
There come a point where no job is needed because of digital humans, digital labor. I'm not quite sure about that. I think this is just like the self-driving car. There will come a point where that works everywhere. Right now it's in San Francisco and Austin, Texas, a few other places. Lots and lots of conditions have to be met for that to work. But Amara's law, we underestimate what happens in the long run and overestimate what happens in the short run, or the other way around. But this is a big process here. And this Ilya Sutskever says something very similar at his recent speech at a university.
Slowly but surely, or maybe not so slowly, AI will keep getting better. And the day will come when AI will do all the things that we can do. Not just some of them, but all of them. Anything
that it can learn, all the things that we can do. Now that's 3 or 4 people that, that should know. This should give us thought. If this is happening and we have digital labor, how will our society deal with it? Is it going to be good for everyone or just for the top 2% that run those companies? Or what happens to our satisfaction from work? And even commodity work can be sometimes give us satisfaction. So I think Amara's law will also apply to technological unemployment. We overestimate the effect of technology and the unemployment that's related in the short run. We think it's happening now. but underestimate in the long run. This graph shows you that there's growth in work like health, scientific, technical, communications, hospitality, because it's more human-only work, and the other jobs are shrinking. But what if machines are actually very good at communications, at creating things, at hospitality, and humanoid robots come into the story there as well? In roughly 5 years, we have the smartest super brain in the world in a super body, so to speak. Another very big discussion. AGI as defined by OpenAI, right? High autonomy, high generality, high intelligence. So that means it can be applied to several things, not just one job, like playing chess or driving a car. It's autonomous, it learns from others, it learns from the network. It is really ultimately recursive, creating super intelligence explosion that has been predicted many times to happen within the next 5 or 6 years even. So job displacement. Here, I've done some research on this, of course, also using ChatGPT, many other sources, the World Economic Forum. And the World Economic Forum is talking about 92 million jobs made redundant by 2030. And talks about 800 million jobs at risk in the broader analysis of things. Disposable jobs, as it calls it. Global new jobs, 170 million. I'm not quite sure how that will happen. I don't really see that sort of number in this relationship, as they have pointed out here. US displaced jobs and the exposure rate, 60% of jobs in advanced economies, 26% in low-income economies. Those are just some data points. I think we have to take this quite seriously, even though, of course, there's no way of knowing which of those numbers will be correct or not. Except for one thing, we know for sure that the techno-optimists are everywhere and telling us that this will be all better for all of us. The leader of the bunch, of course, is Sam Altman and Mark Andreessen from the AZ Ventures. Powerful stuff, but also quite scary when you hear about it. This is a great video that is kind of techno-optimist, but I do like it because it has a sort of Salesforce funniness in it.
If my mortgage lender used Agentforce, the powerful AI from Salesforce, a digital agent would have helped me pre-qualify before my dream house was sold. Wow.
The buyer's lender used Agentforce.
Who's the buyer?
Hey, bro. Welcome to Casa Day Wood.
Oh, jeez.
Morning, Mr.
Pool's open next week. Bathing suit optional.
Yeah, that's a good one. I quite like it. And, the CEO of Salesforce, Mark Benioff, he says in a recent piece that you should read on Time magazine, I think it was actually on the cover, how the rise of new digital workers will lead to an unlimited age, to an age of abundance. Peter Diamandis, great book, but I wonder if that's true. I think it will lead to an unlimited age under certain circumstances, and currently those aren't met. He says in the piece, you should read it, the shift to intelligent labor is already unlocking capacity across industries. It's no longer constrained by human availability, allowing business to scale. So if we're no longer constrained by human availability, what kind of society do we have? What kind of world do we have? Right? We have all seen access to specialized agents, for example, in education. And the Khan Academy is pushing this very heavily. But I wonder about that education that you're going to get from a bot to see if that actually moves the needle. So far, it hasn't. Right? Our personal agents could become our friends, our lovers. I'm not so sure that's the right direction. I think really what's happening is, as we look at this, that this will not work for most people because the economic logic that we're using today is one of profit and growth. Corporate profit or state profit in China is the number one objective. We grow financially, and that's a good thing, and that's what AI will do. But are we going to distribute the benefits of that? Is it going to be human flourishing, financial flourishing, prosperity for everyone? Our old paradigm will not actually allow that, I don't think, because we're going to use that benefit to be a benefit to the corporation, to the people owning the software, and of course the people owning the means of distribution, the capital. I think this is a very, very big challenge for us. How do we actually make that work? And we have techno-optimists, basically libertarians like Mark Andreessen and others, coming up with these manifestos about what will happen with humans. Every white-collar role will have an AI co-pilot and then an AI agent. And he says, which I find pretty egregious. No material problem, including those caused by technology, cannot be solved with more technology. Now, that's a very strong belief in technology. I think there's lots of problems that can't be solved with technology because they're human, cultural, societal, spiritual, whatever problems. They're not mechanical problems. They're not problems, practical problems that we can solve with technology.
We believe in the romance of technology, of industry, the romance. The eros of the train, the car, the electric light, the skyscraper, the microchip, the neural network, the rocket, the split atom. We believe in adventure, undertaking the hero's journey, rebelling against the status quo, mapping uncharted territory, conquering.
Yeah, that's all very romantic, Mark, but is that going to happen for more than the top 2%? And I believe in adventure, I believe in technology, but I do want the technology to be human friendly and not do away with us. So Joshua Bengio, of course, who is now the winner of the Nobel Prize, I think one of the three, with AI and the work that he has done, he provides a lot of warnings on this conversation. And he says the problem comes when safety and profit maximization are not aligned. When I need more profit, then it will be safely possible. That is certainly the case here with OpenAI, that profit maximization can yield corporate behavior that is at odds with the public interest. That's where we are with the digital economy. That's where we are with artificial intelligence and the leap towards AGI, the general intelligence. That is an important message. It will not work to just have the simple paradigm of profit and growth. We need to have a larger paradigm: people, planet, purpose, and recently I added peace and prosperity. The 5 Ps, the core Ps. Once we can figure that out, how to get that all ingrained in AI systems and in digital labor, as the old economic saying goes, show me the incentive, I will show you the outcome. If the incentive is profit and growth, this will be a disaster. So digital labor will not get us to a good place unless we can figure out how to have a better incentive, a larger incentive, the 5 Ps. So unfettered digital labor will basically amplify the existing problems and the harms of this sort of outdated 1P economy, the profit-driven economy. And again, I'm not talking about politics left or right here or socialism, capitalism. I'm talking about a logic of the future, the good logic or the bad logic. But if we can come up with a switch towards the 4 Ps, then it could be amazing, because then it means we could work less and get rid of this obsession with work and distribute the funds and lead to a Star Trek society, maybe, the universal basic income. But this is a political question. It's not a technological question. AI says it wants to be the king of this development, and OpenAI is an interesting example of companies who are a lot like the old Blade Runner company, the Tyrell Corporation, building the digital humans, the replicants. I remember that saying from the first Blade Runner: more human than human. That's our business. I think that's a scary thought, that one company should be able to decide what that means. The difficult part now is that replacing humans is no longer a bug or a negative side effect. It's the design. It's a feature. Companies go out to replace humans. That is the promise, so that we can save billions of dollars in the process. This is, of course, taken from a recent tweet about OpenAI's 5-level AGI scale. When you look all the way at the top, AI that can perform the work of entire organizations of people. That's the goal. Is that a good goal to have? Is that the goal of digital labor? I think the goal of digital labor should be augmentation, cognification, efficiency, making us better, but it should not seek to replace us and to do away with
the
human
average
thing.
American has fewer than 3 friends, 3 people that they'd consider friends. And the average person has demand for meaningfully more. I think it's 15 friends or something. But the average person wants more connectivity than they have. There's a lot of questions that people ask. Okay, is this going to replace in-person connections or?
So he's taken it even further and talking about how AI can become a friend, because we don't have enough friends. These thoughts are striking me as very seriously deranged as far as the future of humanity is concerned. I'm going to have more AI friends because it's hard to have real friends. I don't need to make the effort of real friends. And I can just live in a place where I have all these fake friends. This is straight out of Black Mirror. Right? Mark has probably watched those and taken a piece on the agenda. So aberrations everywhere when it's about digital labor. We need to reset this conversation and say, okay, how can it be a benefit for humans? How can it be creating Flourishing? How can it go beyond the obvious? Now we have a company like Mechanized.work. Their goal is a startup to develop the virtual work environments to enable the full automation of the economy. Well, that's slightly ambitious. The full automation of life. Right. That is even a larger goal. That's probably the next, let's say, mechanized super work. And this is their website. I should take it out, right? They enable the full automation of the economy. And of course, they picked up lots and lots of investment. What a crazy concept. That's not going to be to the benefit of everyone. It's going to be to the benefit of very, very few. Those ones that are doing the mechanizing. KPMG has a whole big spiel on their website about the future of work being agentic. Of course, we're going to use agents, we're going to use AI, we're going to use digital labor, but does that mean we're going to not use humans and just run agentic organizations and with 10% of the workforce? Joshua Bengio again says, these companies have a stated goal and incentive of building machines that will be smarter than us and can replace all human labor. He says, human labor. I say all human labor. This is a bad incentive. If we have this incentive, we have a bad outcome. And we need to address this and say, well, what can we do better when we have this AI, as David Armano points out in a great article on Substack, which I really like recently, reading lots on Substack, that AI is becoming an operating system. It's like the operating system of the internet. It's completely changing the internet now, starting with search, going from searching for the blue links to searching for answers, an answering machine. Right? It's an AI-based environment.
Does humanity know what it's doing?
No.
I think we're moving into a period when, for the first time ever, we may have things more intelligent than us. You believe they can understand?
Yes.
You believe they are intelligent?
Yes.
You believe
Jeffrey Hinton, also, of course, Nobel Prize winner, and one of the, 50 scientists who stepped back and said, okay, what have we created here? Is that a good thing to have without consideration as how to safeguard it and how to create guidelines and guardrails? Important conversation. Digital labor will happen. We can use it positively. We can use it to substitute, to augment, or to automate entire swath of human work. And of course, the whole discussion is now about intelligence being recursively driven by AI. At a certain point, AI knows everything, and then it can invent anything. It can be a scientist. It can come up with new solutions and completely leave us in the dust. So that superintelligence is the result of this recursive development.
The economics of information are about to radically change because we're going to reduce the cost of production of knowledge to zero marginal cost. And this is just a very...
Reduce the cost of production of knowledge to zero. Now, of course, this is again Mustafa Suleyman from now Microsoft, right? Is that a good thing? Is it possible? It is probably possible. Should a private company undertake this, the cost of production of knowledge towards zero? And what consequence will it have? It can't just have great consequences to make more money or to be faster. This is not software like CRM or something. This is a whole different design of what humans will do and what machines will do. And again, Eric Schmidt nails it again.
We're going to generate savants, that is, specialized assistants that will work with you in whatever you do. An artist savant, a music savant, a physics savant, and so forth. Those savants will work with you to do research, drug discovery.
Savants, we're going to generate savants, geniuses. But doesn't it take a little bit more than knowledge and logic and intelligence to be a savant? I think intelligence alone is not enough. In fact, it's very dangerous to have people or machines who are just possessing raw intelligence, not actually connected to other intelligence, emotional, kinesthetic, social, spiritual intelligence, understanding. That could be extremely dangerous. Those people or machines would take over and just act out of pure logic. So scenarios for output and wages, if AGI, artificial and general intelligence, happens here on the left, traditional and baseline AGI, the output will explode, of course. We have a lot more output, high quality output, once we have more digital labor pretty much across the board, but the wages will drop towards zero. And this is not just some wages, but most of the white collar and the blue color, of course, anyway, and the pink color and the green color, all the colors. And that's a big question to me. Like, what exactly will we do at that point? And yes, if we can work less and the money is being distributed and the benefit, yeah, that should be great. But this is a political decision. This is a question of policy. And we may be stuck in this place where we have too much of a good thing. Wall Street Journal the other day, as opposed to the Microsoft report, the journey to the frontier firm, we have AI learning to escape human control. For example, to be switched off. This is a very, very plausible scenario. The smarter technology gets, it will figure that it can't fulfill the mission if it gets switched off or loses power. So it will overcome the limitations that we are naturally setting for. So again, recursive, beyond human control. Very interesting article. I think we should read. That's a really great graph here about how the AI is sending out a copy of it to look more harmless than it really is. So will this lead to a sort of an internet without humans, an internet of AI? Many people have said that in the future there'll be more bots on the internet doing stuff for us than we will. And it becomes a humanless internet. Again, I made this with AI, so it's perverse in many ways. We're going from predictive AI to generative AI to conversational AI to agentic AI, and then the everything machine, the everything AI. That strikes me as a very dangerous progression. At what point do we lose control, and who is in charge of all of this? This is beyond business, not just about software and better results. This is about rewriting the rules of humanity. So a futurist colleague of mine, Deborah Perry-Piscone, has written a white paper that argues that we're going to see shrinking organizations. And I think I tend to agree. That seems to be programmed into the way that things are working. And she says there's two competing paths of development: automation and augmentation. The current path towards automation has a white-collar bloodbath at the end of it.
Deborah Perry-Piscione's white paper argues that artificial intelligence, AI, is driving a rapid and fundamental transformation of organizational structures, resulting in a shrinking organization phenomenon that is accelerating beyond the anticipation of most leaders. This transformation...
Interesting point. This wasn't, of course, Deborah herself. This was the AI from HeyGen. I figure I will give you a taste of what it looks like. You can read that again later yourself on the PDF. But if the shrinking organization happens, then indeed we will have lots of useless humans, and we'll also have useless real life. Because we're going to work in cyberspace, and we're going to have to compete with machines for attention. And maybe ultimately the smart AI will treat us like pets. This is an interesting debate, because I'm much more hopeful that this can be done differently, but we have to, again, question, of course, the motive in the direction and the purpose and the telos to see how that works. Once we have clearly defined where we are going, then we can define a better path. So what should we do today? Number one, Eric Schmidt again.
I look at this future, I want to be clear that the arrival of this intelligence, both at the AI level, the AGI, which is general intelligence, and then super intelligence, is the most important thing that's going to happen in about 500 years, maybe 1,000 years in human society. And it's happening in our lifetime. So don't screw it up.
That's a key point. Let's not screw up what we do with AI. Let's think a little bit further before we roll it out. Let's not contemplate a Manhattan project for AI. We know how the old Manhattan, the previous one, Manhattan project, how that ended. Let's collaborate to figure out how we can create digital labor with the maximum benefit, not to the companies just offering it or facilitating it, but for population at large. Let's think about an international artificial intelligence agency that could be in charge of how we're going to safely roll out general intelligence, even if that's even still possible. Some people are saying 2030. We're way too late for that conversation. I'm going to discuss that with you later. I don't think that is true. I think really today we're seeing the emphasis on augmentation is to help us to do things better. And that's the way it should be. I think automation is overrated as a goal. And this idea is basically an idea of tech companies of Silicon Valley or of Chinese companies, is to automate everything. So we can make lots of money automating, but nobody has any money to buy anything. So we need to figure out who's in control of this process. And That's also a key argument, as my friend, the Gerd dog, will tell you.
The world of data is not the real world. That's an important distinction. The world of data is a logic-based world. Any AI that you would ask to take into consideration any ephemeral facts like values, ethics, beliefs, that's not happening because it's not binary. It's not yes or no. It changes. So
the world of AI is data. The real world exists outside of this, and we should keep it that way for now. We should not confuse amazing digital simulations with the real world. And should we unlock the real world to allow AI to flourish there as well and to understand all of it and to pretend to be real? Those are big conversations. That's why I started this kind of meme of halting AI. I actually have a small website called haltAI.com. Not AI in general, but general intelligence. Important topic. Just a few days ago, Apple came up with a research report, and Clara Durodier came up with a summary of the report. I think it's powerful stuff. It's available to everyone. And Apple has demonstrated that reasoning in current models is a little bit more than an illusion. And that a lot of things aren't working, that it's not just the hallucinations, but fundamental limitations. And throwing a monkey wrench in the conversation about the future, some of that stuff is beyond my limited technical understanding, but you're welcome to dive into it. I think we need to stay real. Going back to action items, right? Stay real, ask questions, call the bullshit, and not get scared about big promises that will be as big as the self-driving car and Elon Musk yelling it out for the last 20 years or so, that next week we'll be all in self-driving cars. Generally, I would say tools are great. Better tools are always better. You have to refuse the tool to become a friend, a partner, a lover, or a god. And that's the current conversation. It's like, oh, why do I need friends? I can use the tool. Why do I need to ask questions? Because I always get answers. If AI is an answering machine, then I lose my critical opinion, my insights, my understanding. I use my ability to think critical. This is very, very important that we shield ourselves from too much of this thing, and that we come up with solutions that allow us to use it, but not be used by it. AI is an amazing tool, but it would make a lousy friend. A friend that's a machine that doesn't care, it doesn't have a heart, it doesn't exist, it doesn't understand humans, that doesn't really care about what happens to anyone except for the logic of the system, would make a terrible master, pulling our strings. I think this is an important point in human history where we have to think about digital labor, and if that's going to be like the industrial labor, lots of benefits, lots of really bad side effects like climate change, we need to be a little bit wiser this time around, I think. We may need something like the human resistance. I'm starting a discussion about the human resistance network. The human resistance means we're going to put forth that human flourishing and human power is the most important thing. And of course, not just humans, but also the planet. And this is why I think it's going to be super important for us to consider what that means as we're going to this really bizarre place of dehumanization that is attempted to be part of everything, where artificial intelligence guardrails are disrespected. And so, will futurists still matter? Well, the AI dished up this really interesting slide and says the keynote speaker inspires with passion, vision, storytelling, connects emotionally. Yes, I figured that should be the case, while ChatGPT kind of does the obvious, explains trends, forecasts, does the logic. We have to focus on human-only work. That's our only chance to really do well in the future. Human-only work. Creativity, design, emotions, negotiation, consciousness, understanding, spirituality, the tacit knowledge. That's what we should teach our children rather than programming. Because, let's face it, AI is a power tool like a nail gun. It shoots nails. It's faster than a hammer. It's a better tool. Use the power tools, but protect yourself so you don't shoot yourself in the foot with 50 nails. Take care. I think this is ultimately the bottom line of artificial intelligence today. And then we should think larger. Maybe when we have AI and digital labor doing 70% of the work, maybe that's a good time to think about paying people to just do other things, to take a wider view. huge political debate on this one. Currently, I don't believe that's going to work out for obvious reasons. Just looking west here, yeah, there is no wider view. There's no larger story. It's about power. It's about a one-piece society going back to what it used to be. That needs to change. We have to take a wider view and ask, can we have a society that's built on this enormous abundance? And can we pursue real life, not pursue fake life and end up very sad? You've seen the movie. So I want to thank you for your time. I know it's rather long, but now we're going to jump into the conversation. I'm going to bring in some special guests, and I'm going to look at your comments on YouTube and LinkedIn, and I look forward to talking to you. Remember one thing, the future is better than we think.